Vancouver Hockey Show, Andrew Wadden, producer Aaron. It's been a while.
Happy solstice.
That's right. It is officially summer now. Yesterday being the longest day of the year. I got that correct, right? It was yesterday? Yeah. As we record this on June 21st.
It's all downhill from here.
It's the morning of Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Final, by the way. And I mean...
All right, let's just date this podcast right off the bat. Let's do it.
Yeah, well, why not? Who cares? People... If you're a Canuck fan, though, you're probably wanting the Stanley Cup Final to end. I know you're probably not an Oilers fan, but I don't know about you, Aaron. I just want to see more hockey.
Yeah.
I really don't care who wins. It'd be cool for Canada to get a Stanley Cup and take this whole narrative that Canadian teams can't win cups, blah, blah, blah. But
I mean, look, it's 27 degrees outside. I'm not in a hockey mood personally. Like, I want to be at Matt Bailey watching baseball, you know?
I hear you. I hear you.
Like, yeah.
I'm just not ready to let go just yet.
If it was just a month earlier and you're getting the cup out, sweet. Like, just knock the season back. You're just, yeah.
I heard conversation about this. I heard some people suggesting that, you know, because everyone's sort of like you just said, it's too hot outside. And we're in British Columbia, we're in Vancouver. Like,
yeah, we're not in the heat dome in Halifax or Toronto or anything like that.
Exactly. We're not even getting it right now. But I have heard other people suggest, you know, the fact that it's just dragging out so long. And if it does go 7, then we're going to go, June 24th, I believe so a few days from now will be the final game of the series. But some people just talking about how the NHL season should just start earlier.
Yep.
Like, get it started in September. And I know that will never fly with the competing, you know, leagues. And the NFL, of course, is king, and everyone's scared of the NFL because it gets more eyeballs than any other league, at least in North America.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but at least the majority of those games are on a Sunday. So,
well, the way the NFL is going now, though, they're taking
Thursday
over Thursdays,
night, Wednesday night, Monday night.
They got
but,
Mondays,
but those are like one games, right? Like the majority of the games are, you know.
See, this is the difference, though, between Major League Baseball, the National Hockey League, the NBA, the NFL. Fans will watch predominantly every team. Like, they'll just sit down and watch all day. So they do own Thursdays, even if it's just one game, because everybody's going to watch it.
Yeah.
They do own Mondays, and they do multiple games now on Mondays because everyone's going to watch it. And then, of course, when it gets into December, they start stealing Saturdays because college football falls off a little bit.
Yep.
My point is this, though, as we went down this huge rabbit hole, my point is this, is they're not going to allow the NHL to start earlier because they want programming like ESPN, TNT, Sportsnet, TSN. They all want programming for as long as they can, right? Because once they get into the dog days of summer, and if you're like a baseball fan here in Canada and you're a Blue Jays fan, shoot, are you even watching the games right now? Like, they're awful, right? So they need eyeballs. Yeah. So that's the point.
I just have a problem when it's 27 degrees outside watching a winter sport. But
I hear you. And well, not only that,
with the Summer Olympics starting in like 3 weeks too, right?
And now we got Euro going and Copa America as well. And I don't know if you caught that Canada game last night. That was
great job by Canada. Like, even though they didn't get the result, like
good half a game.
Like,
yeah. All right, let's dive into the Canucks a little bit. Get into a little bit of a rewind here because we're a little late to the party when it comes to the Filip Hronek extension. It's 8 years, and Aaron, it's $58 million. And I'll tell you what, he was in a good mood when he talked to the media this time around.
I wonder why.
He got 58 million reasons to be nice to the media. But it's an AAV of 7.25. So if you want to look at it in terms of breaking down, you know, sort of percentage and whatnot, you know, it's 8.2% of the cap as of today. But the cap is going to rise 4 million, and then it could be another, you know, 4 million after that. So that cap hit isn't going to look that bad once the, you know, economics of the league sort of rise, right? So I know some people were saying, I mean, a lot of the insiders are saying it's going to be $8 million. And I saw Michael Bublé had a funny little tweet where he took a shot at one of the NHL insiders. You guys can go look it up, but it was a little tongue in cheek. But at the same time too, like, that's a pretty good piece of business then if you're the Vancouver Canucks, right? If you've got every insider, or the big boys at least, expecting that the number is going to start with 8 on the AAV, and they get it done at 7.25, Aaron, that's pretty good work from Ruther Bean there.
Yeah.
So like I said, as the cap rises, this won't look as bad. I mean, you got to weigh in the fact that And it's everything that Patrick Allvin said, because he did do a presser with the media after the extension was signed. But he's 26 years old right now. Like, he fits that age group that the Canucks are trying to go forward with in terms of their core. You know, you got Quinn Hughes, as of today, is 24 years old. You know, Pettersson's 25. You know, Besser's can sign an extension as of July 1st. He's 27, right? So he fits in with the core. I expected this. I know that we've done, we talked about it on the last pod in terms of where the numbers were going to go. I set my, sort of ceiling. I said 7 million. I didn't think 7 million was going to get it done, but 7.25, it's pretty damn close, and especially since it's not 8, right? It looks a hell of a lot better than 8. I'll tell you that. So I the more I think about this extension, the more I like it. But that being said, I don't love the tale of 2 seasons for Filip Hronek last year, right? 36 of his 48 points in the first 49 games. Like, at one point there, we were going, wow, Hronek, like, look at this guy. Of course, when you're with Quinn Hughes, you're going to pick up points when you play alongside Quinn Hughes.
But this was a little extra.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, his career high was somewhere in the high 30s, I believe, in terms of a single season. So he did set career highs in assists and points last year. But, of the 48 points, like I said, 36 of them in the first 49 games. So he had 15 total points, basically, from February 6th, which was, I believe, right around the time they got back from All-Star, till the end of the playoffs. He wasn't very good in the playoffs, at least not in terms of the point production.
I mean, J-Pat tried to ask him.
And I'm not going to, go to bat for J-Pat again. I've already said my piece on that. But that being said, like, all right, you don't have the answer now. You better, because we've given you $58 million to figure that out. Yeah. And I love the point production, like the total points from Hronek last year at 48. It's a very good number. You know, I believe it's top 20 or just outside of top 20 in terms of NHL defensemen in terms of scoring. And when you do look at the time on ice, like, it's significant, the amount of time that he spent with Quinn Hughes. So you love that. You love the fact that they are a great pair together. But again, you do want to see Filip Hronek sort of be steady throughout the season. And then, of course, in the playoffs, because really this is what this is all about now for this core is, having success in the playoffs. Comparable contracts, I'm just sort of looking around. I know some people have done pieces about it already. So I just kind of looked at 2 that I circled. But the difference between these 2 guys and Filip Hronek is their left shots. So Vince Dunn signed a 4-year deal at $29.4 million. So that's a 7.35 on the AAV. Same AAV for Noah Hanifin. He just doubled it with an 8-year deal with Vegas at $58.8 million. So those are some comparable contracts there. And I think it's pretty fair to put Hronek and Dunn and Hanifin sort of in the same sort of echelon with one another. I think I would take Noah Hanifin over all of them, but at the same time too, Filip Hronek's a right shot guy, and that's what he's got over both of those guys. Now, those guys can play both sides as well, but just looking at the contracts and looking at comparables and looking at, sort of fair market value, I think the Canucks did all right with this one. All right, what's left now, Aaron? Because if you take a look at Cap Friendly, which, by the way, we're not going to be able to take a look at Cap Friendly anymore, because did you hear this, by the way?
No, I didn't.
Yes. The Washington Capitals purchased Cap Friendly. They are taking it from us. It's probably one of the sites that I frequent the most.
That's also very interesting. A very interesting buyer. Yeah.
Well, it's smart, right? It's data, right?
Yep.
And Washington decided, all right, well, we're going to buy it. Now, I saw a funny joke because Washington made an interesting 1-for-1 trade when they shipped out Darcy Kemper for Pierre-Luc Dubois. And some people joking, like, now that they own Cap Friendly, they can hide Pierre-Luc Dubois' contract. Well, still bad, regardless of what you own. Check out Puckpedia, by the way. Hart Levine, I remember we had Hart on many times when I was on TSN 1040, whether it was at the Rink Wide show, whether I was producing the afternoon drive show there. We had Hart on many times. He's really good guy, really smart guy. And Puckpedia is a great website. So if you are looking for, cap friendly alternatives, check out
new friendly website for all your cap needs.
There you go.
Puckpedia.
Exactly. Puckpedia. But we still have Cap Friendly here for now. And just taking a look there, They have 18.5 million. That's when you weigh in the LTIR IR candidates, which of course is Tucker Poolman, at $2.5 million. So let's sort of just flesh this out right now. 18.5 million. Well, they need top six winger for sure. 2 top six wingers? Question mark? Perhaps. Get to that in just a moment. Third line winger or center. And again, that depends on what you think Pia Suter is going to be, whether he's going to be in your top six or not. A second pair right shot D-man. A third pair just in general. They need a third pair. Now, I know they signed Noah Juulsen, and I don't know. Like, I'm wondering if they think that Juulsen can, be that guy, or is he still going to be a depth player for them? I know Tyler Myers is still, in the weeds. He wants to stay here from the sounds of it, considering his age, how much dough he's already stuffed into his jeans already, that he'll probably take a hometown discount of sorts, but he's not going to play for free. Right? This is not going to be an under $1 million contract. So, what do they do with the third pair there? Is Myers or Juulsen going to be the permanents on the right side? And then, of course, backup goaltender, which, is going to be Archer Seeloffs. Happy trails to Casey DeSmith. I don't think I'm pointing anything out too obvious. But let's start right there, right? So you got 19.5 million. So what's the backup going to cost you? And it's probably not going to be much more than $2 million, I think, Aaron.
Yeah, that seems reasonable.
To be honest with you, I think if you're, Archer Seeloff's camp, you're probably, running to the fax machine, if they still have those, to sign the deal, because 2 million might be a little rich. So regardless, it's not going to break the bank. Let's put it that way. Let's just put a ceiling on that. Let's jump to the front of the line though, because that top six winger really is the one
that's where the attention is needed.
Yes, exactly. And, Dollywall and, all the other insiders are saying that the Canucks are going to be well in on Jake Guentzel. Of course, he's got a background with the Pittsburgh Penguins. And as we know, Rutherford, they love to bring in their old friends from Pitt. And don't get me wrong, Jake Guentzel is one of the top free agents that's available on the market, if not the top free agent that's available on the market. The only thing is, with 18.5 million to play with, are you going to spend 9 of that straight up on one player when you have all the other holes that I just talked about? So I don't know. Like, I'm all for Jake Guentzel, and I love star power, and I think he would fit in real well with that core that I pointed out earlier with the Canucks. But is it the right move? And really, what's the objective here? Because it's got to be to win a Stanley Cup at this point, right? Like after what we saw last year, the fact that this core is in their window right now, Guentzel definitely, helps that. But would it be better to perhaps, try to get 2 guys for the price of one Guentzel?
I mean, 2 is better than 1.
At times. At times,
yes.
I don't know. And I'm just spitballing here, folks. I don't know where these prices are going to go. Who knows how these GMs are going to spend right now, because really this is, one of the first off seasons where they can start to stretch their legs a little bit, right? And we're coming out of COVID and we're starting to see the cap rise a little bit.
Yep.
But some of the names that are out there, I know Jonathan Marchessault is out there, and he's a little bit longer in the tooth, 33 years old as of today, but 69 points. Nice. 42 goals last year, short 3-4 year contract. Does he fit in? Could you get it under 5? He made what last year? He made $5 million last year. So that might be tough. I mean, there's Tyler Toffoli out there. Tyler Toffoli, again, 32 years old, had 55 points last year, 33 goals, loved his time in Vancouver, only made 4.25 last year. Could you get a Tyler Toffoli and maybe even this one? And listen, I don't know if I said it on the pod, because I know that I did a TikTok video around it. What about Patrick Kane? Like, what about Showtime coming to Vancouver? And if you're an old school Canucks fan, like, you're puking in your mouth right now because of the history. But I mean, here's a guy that Detroit got on the cheap last year. And of course, we all know the reasons why. And there's a very good chance that Patrick Kane is not going to be, cheap. Well, I don't, and by cheap, I think 5 might be your ceiling. I think if you were going to, flirt with the idea of bringing him in.
It's not quite the bargain bin, but I mean, like, you're getting a good deal.
But if you could get a Toffoli and a Kane for the price of a Guentzel, would you do it? Like Kane had 47 points in 50 games last year, and he made 2.75. Now he's not going to make 2.75. That's just not going to happen. And when you're flirting with a point a game player there, and of course he's Patrick Kane, future Hall of Famer. Now I know he's long in the tooth. He's 35 years old, so this would not be a significant contract at all. I'm sure his camp is really pushing hard to get a 2-year. But would you flirt with the idea, of a Patrick Kane and a Tyler Toffoli as opposed to a Jake Gensel? That's an interesting one. And it sort of leads us into, what exactly do they need? Because I put in my notes, top 6 winger times 2 with a question mark. Because if you look at the Canucks right now, is P.S. Suter, do you like him on Miller's line? Or is he better served as a 3C? Now, there's a lot of talk about Teddy Bluger and hearing that the Canucks really want to bring Bluger back. Bluger's not going to break the bank, so that's fine. And I'm fine with bringing Teddy Bluger back. Is he going to be your 4th line guy? Is he going to be your 3rd line guy? Again, what do you think Suter is? Because if you think Suter fits in your top 6, then you don't really have to go out and get to, legit top 6 guys. And maybe you do flirt with the idea of bringing Dakota Joshua back at that point. But again, if you're going to spend, like $9 million on one player, then you're really going to hamper yourself in terms of fleshing out the rest of that lineup. Also, too, you still need a second pair right shot defenseman. Now, that could be Myers. Maybe they feel that could be Myers, and that maybe they feel that Juleson is ready for the prime time.
Because Myers had a good season. Let's remember that. Myers had a good season. Let's remember that.
He did, but you also have to remember that, again, like he is old. Right? Foot speed's going to be something that's going to be tough for him at times. But also, do you want him playing second pair minutes? Is he better sheltered on that third pair? So, these dollars, when you start to sort of spread them out a little bit, you're sitting there going like, can you spend and this is just assuming that Jake Gensel's going to be $9 million, because there could be teams that come over the top and go, you know what, at his age where we are, why don't we give him 10 and a half? And at that point, the Canucks definitely have to balk. I'm also wondering too, Aaron, if there's going to be teams like Chicago that are just like, screw it, we got a ton of cap. Let's just throw some money at guys and try to be good quicker than we expected to be. Because that's
also, what can Utah do? I feel like that's a team they're relocating, kind of need to make a splash, make some moves.
Have tons of draft capital to work with.
Yeah.
Tons of it. I'm just going to pull them up here. 3 second rounders, 3 third rounders, 2 4ths, 2 6ths. They got their 1st, 5th, and 7th. And then you flip it to 2025, they got 4 second rounders, 2 thirds. And then you flip it to 2026, they got 3 second rounders, 2 thirds. Like, they stocked up on second and third round picks. That is 10 second round picks over the next 3 drafts and 7 third rounders.
And if there's somebody who I think really, really wants to make a statement, the Utah owner, right?
Yeah, so, he's that sort of new style, billionaire, right? Yeah. Like, wears the hat backwards, has the hoodies on all the time. I don't think I've ever seen him wear a suit.
Jackets with unnecessary zippers all over the place. Yeah.
See Michael Jackson. In fact, I don't think I've ever seen him without a hat on, which I don't give a shit about that stuff. Anyway,
he's a sports guy.
It's not only that, it's 2024. Let's get over all that crap. It just seems to be a lot more looser nowadays. But even with Utah, like, projected cap space with LTIR candidates at $51.4 million. So yeah, Aaron, you're right. Like, Utah could be well into it. And they got some good players as well. Utah's going to be an interesting team. So yeah, going back to Gensel, maybe there's a whole bunch of people that are just in line that are just like, you know what? We want to throw around some money. We want to make a splash, like a Utah, like you said, Chicago. I just think Chicago is going to do stuff. I feel like they're looking at Connor Bedard right now and in year 2 of his ZLC and being like, why don't we just go? When I say go for it, I don't mean like, go for the Stanley Cup, because there's many pieces that they would have to, put together for that. But, make a run, make Chicago excited.
Rattle the cage.
This thing. Yeah, exactly. Accelerate this thing. Right. So, there could be some people in on Gensel that you just, didn't see coming. They might throw too much money at him. I think Canuck fans have to start thinking about alternatives, really, because it just seems like everybody's really enamored on the Jake Gensel, shiny toy right now. I mentioned Sam Reinhart in a TikTok video. I don't know. I mean, he's going to make a ton of money. Like, he's a year younger, I believe, than Gensel. 57, even saying that out loud doesn't seem like it's going to make a lot of sense because, again, there's another guy. I think either Sam Reinhart's going to sign one of those like big boy deals, 10 plus million, or he's just going to re-sign in Florida for like less because everybody wants to play down there. And they seem to just give sweetheart deals. And hey, when you're going to back-to-back cup finals, why not?
Yeah.
Plus, you get to drive a golf cart to work. You seen that?
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Living in the same retirement village as like Jerry Seinfeld's parents, just like.
What was that called? Del Boca something?
Del Boca Vista.
Yeah, there you go.
We're moving to Del Boca Vista.
But seriously, no state tax down there. It's Florida. You're living in Miami, basically. And
you want to talk about someplace that's hot at the moment? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it's hot all year round. Driving your golf cart. You got those amazing amenities that they made there. That is something that, and I'm sidetracking.
But that ice was pretty tricky in the last game there.
I heard that they did a huge like HVAC reno there. I think it was on the 32 Thoughts podcast. They were talking about it, but they did some like significant stuff to make that place cooler. I mean, dude, have you been to Florida this time of the year?
Oh yes.
Bloody hell. Yeah, you're like a puddle, man. Like it's so humid. It's ridiculous. But sidetracking a little bit though, those amenities too, though, like those are massive when you're trying to, re-sign guys, like, like trying to bring Sam Reinhart back.
Especially young guys too, looking to maybe start a family, something, like Florida.
It's one thing that Vancouver doesn't have going for it. Vancouver is an incredible hockey city, one of the best in the world. But when it comes to the amenities for the players, like I know they've been talking about that practice facility forever. Like these are big deals now. These guys, they love to be taken care of.
I mean, just look at that practice facility down in Seattle, right? Like beautiful facility.
Yeah. There. No, it's a separator for some teams, right? Like people talk about signing in Toronto and just how, everything is just, top notch. Now you do have to deal with, the fire bed that is Toronto.
And you need to take public transit to work too. So,
but I mean, Vancouver is a hotbed too, right? Like, you can be tough for the players here as well. The media is all over and we're here in June 21st, doing podcasts and we're not the only person. Right. So, but getting back to that, they did though make a couple of extra signings as well. They signed Mark Friedman again, comes from the Pittsburgh camp. Seems like the Rutherford really liked the guy, depth defenseman from what everybody says was a good soldier for the Canucks last year in terms of the amount of time he spent in the press box, but still working hard on his game. So that's a good signing for the Canucks, $775K. They also signed two-way deals for Linus Karlsson, who saw a few games with the Canucks this year, and Cole McWard as well. And Cole McWard is one of those guys that was name dropped by Patrick Alvin when he was just talking about guys that potentially could come up through Abbotsford. So that was kind of interesting to hear his name mentioned. Also, Jonathan Lekkerimäki, when we're talking about, perhaps what they're going to do with their wingers, they do have that young first rounder that's coming up through the system. You'd have to see an incredible training camp, obviously, so I'm not going to write it off, but it seems like that might be too much of a long shot. And especially where this team is right now. If the objective is to be a Stanley Cup contender, I do wonder, if Jonathan Lekkerimäki is not quite ready for that spotlight. But that being said, we'll see how his summer is. We'll see how his training camp goes. And we'll also see exactly how the Canucks feel. Because if they go out and, sign a few, high-priced wingers, well, I think that kind of tells us the story that's going to happen with him, right? Lastly here, and this is from a report from Dhaliwal, who's been talking to, from our buddy Rick Dhaliwal, that is, who's been talking to the agent for Ilya Mikheyev, Dan Milstein. Apparently, Milstein has been given permission by the Canucks to seek out a trade for Mikheyev. Now, we've heard this already with the Canucks before. We heard this with Besser. Who else did we hear this with? Garland, I believe it was.
Yeah, Garland,
last year. So, that doesn't necessarily mean that these trades are going to happen. And I think in the case of Besser and Garland, actually, for that matter, I think the fans are quite happy that they didn't. This one, though, feels like the fans.
Now watch Mikheyev just go on an absolute tear, just like Garland and Besser did.
There is a little bit of risk involved in this. And I know when you look at, everybody knows exactly what happened with Mikheyev last year. We know the drought when it comes to lack of scoring. We also know the injuries that have happened to him. And in fact, these injuries have kind of followed him around throughout his career. I know The one of them was a freak injury that he got in Toronto when he got his wrist or cut or whatever. So that one's whatever. But the knee injury is concerning, especially for a guy that is, speed is one of his separators, right? So we did see him lose a bit of a step, but there is a bit of a risk involved because he is the kind of guy that, can score 20 goals in the league, right? Does kill penalties, kind of versatile. You can put him up and down, whether it's, on that third line or bottom six of your forwards or move them up to the top six. So there is a bit of a risk. I think most people have just completely written him off because we asked on our socials, what should they do with him? Should they trade him? And you should see some of the responses. Why would people want this guy? What are we going to get, a bag of pucks? I mean, you're going to get rid of 7 that he makes on your cap. And as we, talk about, perhaps having to bring in maybe even two top six wingers. Well, if Mikheyev goes out the door, then you've got another hole to fill there as well, right? But you got more dollars to play with, and then maybe perhaps you do go big game hunting for someone like Jake Gensel. But I think there is a little bit of risk. I'm going to go to bat a little bit for Ilya Mikheyev, even though I basically threw him under the bus throughout the entire season. But there could be a little bit of risk there just because you do have cost certainty. You do know the player, and, he could rebound. Like that knee could have been bothering him throughout the year last year, could find his speed back in the offseason. I know there's a lot of woulda, coulda, shouldas here. But the fact is, I don't think it's necessarily a great idea to just move off of Mikheyev. Because again, like I said, you do have to fill that hole. And then, of course, with free agency, like they did with Mikheyev in a bit of an overpay there, you could be looking at doing that again.
Well, I have one last thing before we roll too.
Okay.
Just want to give a big shout out to Penticton for locking down Young Stars again. They have another commitment. So since the last time we talked, so great for the city of Penticton.
No, you're absolutely right. Penticton's a great place for that kind of event. Obviously, the players will love going there. A little bit of golf, I wonder if they do.
That's a summertime event I can get behind.
Yeah, One day I'll get there. I wonder though, do the players even have time to hit the links there? I know they put them through a whole bunch of stuff. So regardless, I know the media members like to go out there and hit the little ball around. So yeah, you're right. It's a great event. We disappeared there for a couple of years. Glad that it's back. Good to see that the city of Penticton is behind it. And if you're the city of Penticton, you obviously love it.
Well, I just like the fact that sports teams in Vancouver are trying to include the province more. Like BC Lions playing a game in Victoria this year. Well,
they hold their training camp every year out in Kamloops too.
Yeah, exactly. So just get the whole province involved, right? Because, Alberta, you got 2 teams out there vying for attention and stuff. And here's the Canucks. And yeah, it's just nice to see.
Well, we'll see what kind of attention that team in Alberta gets after Game 6. And we'll be back again to talk about, maybe the Stanley Cup Final, or the Stanley Cup that is getting hoisted, the Stanley Cup Final wrapping up.
And then the big event in Vegas.
Exactly. Draft, and then, of course, free agency opening. So it's going to be a big couple of weeks.
I've been to the Sphere. I am very curious to see what the NHL does with that venue.
I got a little bit confused by the way they were handing out the awards this year, because they were announcing them early. And I was like, what's the awards? But then went and took a look at it. It's just the big boy awards that get announced at the actual event. Mm-hmm. Not that the Jack Adams isn't a big boy award, though. I would have kept the coach to the big event.
Well, the coach kind of needs to be there too, right? So,
they already handed it out, right?
Yeah.
So, whatever. We're not going to be there. But we'll recap it all, though, here on the Vancouver Hockey Show. Thanks for listening, everybody. For producer Aaron, I'm Andrew Wadden. Thanks for listening, everyone.